Welcome to Eastern Conference Wednesday on Locked On NHL. I'm Ross Levitan. With me, as always, is Mike DiStefano. It's the Battle of Ontario edition each and every Wednesday on the Locked On NHL channel, discussing all things Eastern Conference with the wild card race heating up. Seems like a three-horse race. How are we handicapping it? And we also have some great storylines, milestones coming up at the end of the season. Plus, Connor Bedard dazzles in the WHL playoffs. Yeah, we're catering to you bottom feeders. Where would we most and least like to see Connor Bedard end up among the Eastern Conference teams? All of it's brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more on the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. Visit FanDuel.com/Locked On to get started today. This is the Locked On NHL Podcast. It's your team every day.
Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen on this Wednesday, April 5th. For more on the Locked On NHL channel, make sure you're subscribed and downloading your podcast wherever you get yours, including on YouTube, where you can also find Locked On Maple Leafs, where Mike DiStefano plies his trade 5 times a week. You can find me over at Sens Central or the Locked On Senators podcast. Mikey, I want to start with my credentialed member of the Leafs media. You had a moment in the press box you wanted to get into today.
And you in particular, I wanted to get into it. I posted on Twitter like a little pic of a green tea that I had gotten when I was at the Leafs game last night. I know, not a beverage that I typically grab when I'm up there, but it was around, second period or so in the intermission, and I thought to myself, I'm going to go get myself a beverage, and I walked up there fully intending on getting a hot chocolate. And once I got there was a lady in front of me putting together her coffee, and I'm just waiting in line like a good little boy. And, the second she moves, I walk up, and I'm about to grab the hot chocolate, and then I see someone get in line behind me. It was Jason Spezza.
Of course it was.
And I decide I need to pivot. And instead of grabbing this hot chocolate pack, take it back a little bit and grab this green tea packet and make myself a green tea instead of a hot chocolate, because I don't need Jason Spezza sitting there thinking bad things about me. Was that a pigeon move on my part to alter my bevy choice because of Jason Spezza?
And what you thought he would perceive you as.
Yes.
If you were grabbing a hot chocolate in the second period of a Maple Leafs game. I don't think it's a pigeon move. I think it's all right. But, does he love hot chocolate?
I don't know. No, I didn't want to, dude, it's Jason Spezza, man's a pro athlete. He's been in shape his whole life. I don't know what possessed me to think that he would shame me internally if I were to grab hot chocolate. So I made a business decision and pivoted to the green tea. That's all.
He would never, though. He's one of the nicest guys in the game.
He wouldn't say anything, but in his mind, he might be like, look at this plug getting hot chocolate. What is he, a child?
He knows who you are. Come on.
Probably, but still, I don't need him thinking anything like that. So he can think, wow, look at AB getting himself a nice green tea. Maybe he's trying to slender down a little bit. Now he's thinking positive thoughts about me.
Well, he's seen your scouting combine, which everyone can find on TSN when you and Jeff O'Neill went at it. He's all in. And you know what? He is a guy who's obviously carried himself very well through his NHL career. And
yeah.
I think in retirement, we see some guys who just kind of let it fly and just like having a good time. Keith Tkachuk, maybe not to name names, but with Spez, I feel like he's the kind of guy who's still like Mark Mathot, our friend of the show, where he's still going to be in the gym 4 or 5 times a week, even after his career. So I can see from that angle that it might be intimidating. It's not quite Gary Roberts standing behind you, but it's still a guy who I don't think I'd want to see grabbing the extra donut or a little extra hot chocolate. I get where you're coming from.
And let me tell you, he grabbed a coffee, black coffee. That was the order that he made. There you go. You got the Jason Spezza order right there.
The Jason Spezza special.
we had a quick little, like, 45-second powwow while we prepared our drinks, so it was nice to kinda get some FaceTime with Spets, and I asked him how he's enjoying, management and whatnot, and, he said he's enjoying it a lot, but right now as, teams gear up for the playoffs, the Leafs in particular, he is getting a little itchy. He's like, God, some days I wish I was back out on the ice ready to get into that playoff fire," but, all in all, he is enjoying the management part of being a hockey player.
Jason Spezza, now in management, was 20 years old when he lost to the Toronto Maple Leafs in the last series that the Maple Leafs have won in the NHL
Yeah.
playoffs.
Number one song on the charts the day the Maple Leafs won their last playoff series. Do you know what it was?
Uh, Don't Stop Me, Freddie.
Yeah, by Usher.
Stop. Yeah, by Usher.
Yeah, by Usher was the number one song in the charts the last time the Maple Leafs won a playoff round.
That's a
Yes.
great song, by the way.
It's a tremendous tune.
Yeah.
Tremendous tune.
That came up the other day because I brought back Ottawa was playing Carolina, and Freddie Anderson had a few bad game sevens in Toronto. So I'd been calling him Freddie Lalim. So obviously with Carolina, Ottawa going head to head, we brought that up yesterday. But they're poised to make a run. This year feels different, Mike. This year feels different.
For the Maple Leafs?
Yeah, this year
I
feels
can't
different.
believe you're saying this, Ross. Please
Mhm.
indulge. Why does it feel different for the Toronto Maple Leafs this season compared to any other?
I don't know. Maybe I'm just trying to hype the fan base up, but I think it's more so like they've been building towards this for the last number of years, and you're seeing kind of the slow and steady rise of Austin Matthews this year rather than just pumping it in the back of the net November, December, January. Well, he did it all year to be fair, but I think that he's making a conscious effort to be peaking his at the right time. And I think that's obviously a dangerous recipe when we know the talent he has. And I mean, it's obvious it's going to come down to goaltending. You've kind of made your decision. Whether it was made for you or not is another question.
Yeah,
That
I think it was made. It was made for Sheldon Keefe and Maple Leafs brass who the goaltender was going to be. Because I
it
still
was
think
made July 13th. It was made.
that's right, and I still think that they very much were hoping that Matt Murray gave them a reason to make him the starter in the final 2 weeks of the season. The injury the other night completely wipes out that possibility, and who knows if Matt Murray even plays again? This year we'll see what happens. Right now, he's considered day to day, and it's Samsonov as the clear cut number one, and Joseph Wall, who's been a really good goaltender so far, had a nice performance against Columbus the other night. He's 4-1 on the year. He's got like a .930 save percentage in his 5 games at the NHL level this season. He's like got an unbelievable record in the American League. It's been stellar, and he's at least number 2 right now. So there's question marks in net, but I think the comfort level is still there despite what happened with Matt Murray the other night against Detroit.
Yeah, and obviously Ottawa and Toronto went head to head on Saturday night, and I completely forgot that you get the new dad bump. And Ilya
Oh, yeah.
Samsonov, right after giving birth, well, his wife giving birth to their kid, he goes out there and gets a shutout, and that was like the easiest money to be made. I can't believe I missed on that.
This is a future Vesna in waiting, Miroslav Samsonov. That's a future Vesna winner right there.
That's a name. That's a name. Keep an eye on in the 2052 draft, 2051. Okay, we'll have our draft coverage.
It'd be in the 40s, pal, not 30 years from now, 20 years from now.
Yeah, not a math guy. Not
Probably
a math.
2040, 2041.
Man, that Sens Leafs game didn't have a whole lot of jam. Like the one a couple weeks ago did. There was some in there, but it just kind of felt dull. I think the Leafs run second half back to back. Ottawa just didn't really put much fight, and it sucks. Obviously, I'm biased and want to see the Sens do well, but no Shabbat, no Chikrin. Like you go out there, you needed a top 4 defenseman. Not only does he get hurt, but the guy who you needed to take some weight off of does as well. Like it's play the kids' time in Ottawa. There's no question about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hey, I think it's an interesting time to be an Ottawa fan because I think they wanted to play meaningful games in April, and for the most part, I think they got themselves into that position, just not late enough into April, maybe.
Yeah, not enough. That's for sure. And you can't be given like obviously hindsight 2020, but they lose the last 2 games in overtime at Columbus where they're leading in the last 5 minutes. And
Tough
then
one.
in Carolina, if they had won both those games, again, hindsight 2020, they didn't and didn't deserve to either. They would be 2 points back of Florida, and that's the matchup tomorrow night, which would have just been as meaningful of a game as you get. But the Panthers, man, this could almost transition. If you want to finish off the conversation, by all means, but this could transfer in to how the Florida Panthers, winners of what, four in a row, they're just on the prowl, and they're looking to get into a firm grasp of that final playoff spot, with even a chance of going ahead of the Islanders, who seem to be on the skids.
Yeah, they're ahead of the Islanders right now in terms of they've got the RO regulation wins tiebreaker right now with 34. Islanders just with 33. So as of now, they actually have the number one wild card spot going into tonight's action.
And the sneaky Buffalo Sabres, who are 6 points back, sure, but have 2 games in hand, and they might have a secret weapon in goaltender Devin Levi, who just looks absolutely filthy. And if you look at his numbers, it should come as no surprise to people who have been following Levi through Junior A, where he put up a 945, follows it up with 2 940 save percentage plus in college at Northeastern, and he's just stepped into the NHL and looks great as well. All right, full wild card conversation coming up, and then yes, we'll turn our attention to the bottom of the standings. And Connor Bedard dominating WHL play. His Regina Pats have a 2-1 series lead as the 6th seed going up against Saskatoon. We'll get into where we'd like to see Connor Bedard ply his trade in the National Hockey League. That is all coming up next. You are Locked On NHL on audio and wherever you download your podcasts. Today's episode of Locked On NHL is brought to you by Indeed. Indeed Job Center. Now, they create lasting potential, and they only make sure that you are given quality candidates. It's just like drafting your fantasy team, which some of you baseball nerds might have just done. You have to handpick the best stars for your business team as well. If you're building a talent roster, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. And you don't have to wait either. Indeed's U.S. data shows that over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match their job description the moment they sponsor a job. Indeed knows that when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applicants that match your must-have job requirements. Visit Indeed.com/locked-on to get started hiring today. Just go to Indeed.com/locked-on. That's Indeed.com/locked-on. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application does vary. Cost per application pricing is not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Thank you for making Locked On NHL your first listen. For more, check out Locked On Maple Leafs, Locked On Bruins, as Ian McLaren provides a roadmap to NHL history. The Bruins are closing in on the most wins ever in a regular season.
FanDuel has an over-under set at 62.5 wins.
I think they do it. The Boston Bruins are currently at 60 wins. They have 5 games remaining. They have them at 62 wins. Hammer the over. What do you mean?
62.5. Yeah, 62.
Oh, 62. They have to get.
Yeah,
they have to get 3 of their final 5 games. Let's play win or loss. Home to Toronto tomorrow night.
Hopefully it's a loss.
Home to New Jersey on Saturday night.
The problem I have with this is like who plays down the stretch.
I'll tell you.
I'll give them the dub. I'll give them the dub.
Doesn't matter for the final 3. At Philadelphia.
Dub.
Home to Washington.
Dub.
At Montreal.
Dub.
Yeah, that's easy over at FanDuel. Go check out our friends at FanDuel. Hey, speaking of Washington quickly, disappointing year. Great to see John Carlson back, by the way, from a fractured skull. That's a brutal injury. So It's great to see him back. They've been hampered by injuries all year. Connor Brown tears an Achilles 4 games into the season. Tom Wilson took so long to come back from off-season surgery, as did Nicholas Backstrom. It's been a tough year, but they, outside of Alex Ovechkin, who has 42 goals, They don't have a single 20-goal scorer, Mikey.
Wow. In a year where goal scoring is at its highest since 1993, that's actually insane.
They have two
And
19-goal scorers. But
well, that's not 20. That's not 20, my guy.
no, and
Um,
obviously injuries have to do with this too, because TJ Oshie has 19, but only in 58 games. So
yeah.
disappointing year, obviously, and Ovechkin at 37 isn't getting any younger.
It's weird, man. Like they officially, I think, were eliminated from the playoffs last night, if I'm not mistaken. And it's bizarre. Like there's a real possibility that we have a playoff round one without Alex Ovechkin and Sidney Crosby.
For the
It's
first
a
time
new
since 2006.
yeah. Yeah, it's insane. Absolutely. Like, legitimately, since I've become like a hardcore hockey fan, I guess you could say, all I've known and remember is those two in the battle in the postseason, and it makes me feel old that they're both at the point where it's like their teams have run its course in a way, and now Washington for sure out, and Pittsburgh. I mean, they're on the outside looking in, going into action tonight, and they've got a hill to climb themselves for Crosby to get back into playoff action.
As we pull up the standings, if you're watching on YouTube right now, and you can see I've covered up the Ottawa Senators. They are dead. Rest in peace to their 2022-23 season. But we've mentioned all the other teams still alive right now. And what would the drama be if the Buffalo Sabres on game 82, they are the last of these teams to play. They're the only team that plays Friday, April 14th. The only team. And they play Columbus. Imagine they have to beat Columbus on the last day of the season to get in. Second half of a back-to-back with travel.
Yeah, I just don't see it happening because they're also scroll over a little bit, but when it comes to the tiebreakers, like the ROW tiebreaker, they're also probably pretty far out when it comes to the other guys. 36 actually, but the regulation wins, which would be the next tiebreaker, they are a little bit further back from Florida and New York, so they would pretty much have to outright win a wild card spot as opposed to getting into a tie and going to the tiebreaker distinction. So I don't know, man. It's going to be
Wow.
tough for Buffalo. I think it's pretty well a three horse race.
Yeah, and I'm just realizing now that Pittsburgh is so far behind in regulation wins, 4 behind the Islanders
Yeah,
and 5
they got to win too.
they got to win straight out, and they just suffered an embarrassing loss last night that Hunter Hodes is all over at Locked On Penguins. We have local experts on every single story in the National Hockey League. But right now, Mikey, you're handicapping it how? 1, 2, 3.
I'm taking a look at the strength of schedule right now for the three remaining teams, and if you want to throw Buffalo into the equation, you can. Although when you look at the schedule for them, 6 games, 3 of them against the Rangers, the Devils, and the Hurricanes. So those games that are in hand, a little bit difficult opponents. So I do see them as a team that's dead in the water. Between the other 3 teams, funny enough, you get the Pittsburgh Penguins, the second easiest schedule through the final 4 games of the season. Their only game against a playoff team is the Minnesota Wild, where they'll be playing probably Marc-Andre Fleury. So that would be kind of an interesting storyline. But then they've got games against Columbus, Chicago, and Detroit. Those should be victories. Those should allow you to pick up 6 points, which should be necessary for them, I think, to make a playoff spot. The Islanders are in a similar position where they have only one playoff team that they have to face on the schedule with Tampa Bay, and they've got Montreal, Philly, and Washington. And then you got to scroll up Florida with the 10th hardest schedule. They've got Toronto and they've got the Carolina Hurricanes and your Ottawa Senators also, who are a pesky bunch and playing spoilers. So Florida, I think, is in a little bit of a tough spot here down the stretch. So I actually see it finishing up the Islanders with the one seed, the Penguins with the 2 seed, and the Florida Panthers going from President's Trophy winners to putting it on the greens in April.
Okay. I like the explanation, but I'm going to go against Pittsburgh. I think that we should note they're at home to Minnesota, so it's a homecoming revenge game for Marc-Andre Fleury. He'll be up for that one. Or it's a revenge
Or
game for Philip Gustafson too. They drafted him in 2018.
yeah, or they, you get a phone call from Sidney Crosby that morning, say, "Hey, just let a couple go in, pal. We go way back. We go way back. We've won gold medals together, Stanley Cups together. Just let a couple go in tonight. Give us that love, and all the Pittsburgh Penguins fans will donate to your charities."
Man,
Or that could happen.
they don't deserve to make the playoffs right now. The Penguins have 4 wins in their last 12 games.
Dude, any team with Sidney Crosby on it deserves to make the playoffs. You shut your mouth.
No,
You shut your mouth.
no. 11, 13, and 1. Below 500 since Valentine's Day.
You're just a hater because they eliminated the Ottawa Senators years ago. That's why you hate
Only
the Penguins.
3 different times during my last decade of being a fan.
Exactly.
Damn Pittsburgh. 16 years is plenty enough to be in the playoffs consecutively. Get out of here.
I want to see it, man.
Let the kids play,
wanna see
Sid. Let the kids
I want to
play.
see it.
Although Pittsburgh-Boston would be fun. Great jersey matchup for sure.
Which of those 3 teams you think could give Boston their biggest run for the money?
I hate to say the Islanders, but like goaltending's the only way you're going to get past this Boston team, and they've got the best one.
I'm with you. I think that would be the only team that might be able to make it a series. Not that they'll win, but could at least make it tight and close. Not a waste of 8 days. Daryl Sutter eloquently put it against Colorado last year. I think it'll be pretty much the same for probably Pitt and Florida if they have to go to TD Garden and play them in round 1.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mikey. Okay, let's turn our attention to the bottom teams. Yes, Montreal, we're looking at you and your absolutely awful, not only record, but injury luck. As I don't know if there's a team that's had so many players shut down in one season to get surgery and make sure they're ready for next season. That's all coming up next. You are Locked On NHL. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's the official sports book of the Locked On Podcast Network. Head to FanDuel.com and download it right now. It's America's #1 sports book. New customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets. If your first bet doesn't win, just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores to threes drain. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss your chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. Very important. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn to learn more. Bet responsibly and make every moment more with FanDuel. It's an official sports betting partner of the NBA, and it is the official sports book of the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, Mike. So for some teams, now everyone's gearing up for playoffs. The President's Trophy's already wrapped up. Congrats to the Boston Bruins. But there is still a dogfight for last place in the National Hockey League. It is one of the most exciting races to the finish and to the bottom since 2015 when Connor McDavid was up for grabs. That is how generational of a talent it looks like Connor Bedard will be. Mike, you saw his goal last night, splitting the D, basically making it as though neither of them were even there.
Gross. Coast to coast. Gross stuff by Connor. And it's plays like that where I do wonder if those who look at him and say, I don't know, his size worries me. Like, he's so small. It's like, do you watch him play? Because size, like, he just threw guys. Like, he wasn't bigger than either. Very much the shorter stature, less thicker human than both of those defenders, bursted through them. Like, it was insane. Like, it was a football drill. Man, the guy's just so strong on his skates, and that's of worries for opposition. It's his skating, which is or his hands, which is the nastiest part of his game.
It's so ridiculous. And as we pull it up, there's a good chance that Connor Bedard ends up in the Western Conference. Right now, Anaheim and Chicago, both with 56 points. Same, though, with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Then San Jose is next in fourth with 60 points. The Habs have 66. The Arizona Coyotes have 67, and I think we could probably draw the line there with 4 points separating the Arizona Coyotes and the Philadelphia Flyers. So, is it fair to say it's a 6-horse race right now for Connor Bedard?
Yeah, I mean,
I guess the
no.
Rangers won the Lafreniere lottery and they finished what, like 10th best odds?
Well, that one was different because they all had the same odds,
Hmm.
remember?
They
So that
they
was a bit of
shrunk.
a different one. But I will say this: yesterday on Leafs a mock draft, and I did 3. Detroit came up twice, and the Blues came up. So that was what happened. So I mean, I can't say it's only a 6-horse race. If you're in the top 10, you've got a shot, you've got a chance. So I think everyone has an opportunity. But yes, very clear. You want to quickly do you want to do one? I got the sim up. You want me to quickly see what happens
What?
here?
Why don't I'll throw it up here so that our YouTube viewers can see so that they don't get any surprises here.
So they don't
All
think
right.
that I'm cheating. They think that I'm a cheater, do they?
That's what they might. I don't know. I'm not saying. I'm just saying.
I'm just
As we pull as we pull it up here, and as we've been saying on Locked On Senators, draft picks are for losers, tongue in cheek, because obviously the draft has been all we've had to look forward to the last 5 years. But now that there's a little shade out and Arizona has the pick, although it is top 5 protected, so I will be tuned
I
in.
was gonna say protected, correct? Because that would be interesting if it was not, but it is protected. Okay.
Yes, yes, but they can only get second or third because you'll remember they've changed the rules that you can only move up a
Yes.
maximum of 10 spots. And again, this is subject to change, but you can see I always laugh that they highlight in green teams that are losing versus red when you win too many games. You get put on that. Anaheim and Arizona, losers of 8 in a row. That is some elite tanking right
Dude,
there.
so is Chicago until they beat Calgary last night.
Yep. That was a big loss for Calgary as well. I'm sure they'll get into that tomorrow on power rankings. All right, the first spin goes Vancouver, the hometown kid.
That would
This
be interesting.
this
That
would be
would be
wonderful.
interesting.
I would be extremely content if this is how the draft goes.
That would honestly be best case scenario. I'll be honest. If the Vancouver Canucks win the draft, I think that is best case scenario. It's a Canadian team. It's a really good market, and he's from Vancouver. Like that's his hometown. If he goes and helps change that franchise, which has been kind of in turmoil the last few years, that would to me be best case scenario. Either there or I mean maybe Montreal would be good from a hockey standpoint, but as
Not
a
from a you and me
Toronto
standpoint.
yeah, from a Toronto perspective and an Ottawa perspective, probably don't want that guy in the division. But that would be the Canucks would be high up on the list. Are we gonna talk about maybe who in the East we would prefer them to go to, though?
Here, we'll give you your spin. We'll say that one was mine.
Oh, okay, sure.
All right, here's your spin.
We
Wow!
Vancouver. Wow, we both get Vancouver. See, that's what happened to me yesterday. Twice in a row, it ended up being I think it was St. Louis back to back, and then my third try it was Detroit. I'm curious. Check and see if on the third time it's like I don't know, reset it really quickly for me so I can see who's in that range. Because
First, we have to give a big plug to the new fellas who are running over at Locked On Canucks. They're probably just absolutely over the moon.
I,
Back to back. What are their
I
odds here? Their odds were 6%, and we just hit it back to back.
I'll you one of Philly or Washington win this one.
Okay, I'll take the field. Let's go.
Okay, let's see.
Oh, I would have rather Philly or Washington.
The Montreal Canadiens. You know who this sucks for? Anaheim, Columbus, Chicago, who haven't even finished in the top 2. They don't even
The
get
third
fans in.
overall. Third overall, you're going to get quite the player, though, whether it's
Yes.
Leo Carlson or Matvei Michkov, both tremendous talents. Let's reset the lottery real quick. One more time. There we go. Look at that. Fourth spin. Could you imagine? I mean, they would be giving up an unprotected first round pick the next year. But at that point, if you can't win, just blow the team up at that point. We got Columbus first, Ottawa second. Get that lock protected pick. Thanks for coming out. That would suck if you're Arizona, though. Hey, you drop a spot and lose a first rounder in a great draft.
Oh, That would be worst case scenario for Arizona.
Yeah. All right. Enough of that. Good stuff. But Mikey, any final thoughts? What's the biggest storyline you're following this weekend in the NHL world?
In the NHL or in the East?
In the East, of course,
In
because
the
we know that
East.
wild card race in the West could be decided by the time you're listening to this. If Winnipeg can come through tonight, them and Calgary, what a big game, huge implications out West. But yeah, we'll stick in the East as we do every Wednesday on Locked On NHL.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's the Western wild card or the Eastern wild card race that I'm kind of keeping an eye on here. Florida, New York, Pitt. Two teams will make it, one will not, and that's clearly the only type of intrigue that we have at this point in the Eastern Conference. Like I don't think there's seeding to play for. Like Carolina, Jersey, New York, they're probably set at 1, 2, 3. Boston, Toronto, Tampa set at 1, 2, 3. So it's really just those three teams that are battling out for those final wildcard spots.
And we will find out sooner rather than later. For daily content on your favorite NHL team, tune in to Locked On Blank, because we have teams for shows for every teams, including Locked On Maple Leafs, Locked On Senators, and all the teams from around the league. And you're listening to the flagship show, Locked On NHL. 5 days a week, we have local experts on the biggest stories. For your second listen, make sure to check out Locked On Maple Leafs. But for today, we say goodbye. For Mike DiStefano, I'm Ross Levitan, and this has been the Locked On NHL podcast. It's your team every day.